President Donald Trump issuing a warning to U.S. cities today as we are seeing another deliberate attack on Christians, he says, with the shooting that took place at that Michigan church. And I'm going to share with you the latest video footage, articles, headlines that's coming out so you can see it for yourself. Michigan church shooting, are attacks on religious institutions on the rise in the United States? If you think so, put yes. If you think no, put no. Take a look at the subtitle here. U.S. President Donald Trump has described the incident as another deliberate attack on Christians. Now, Grand Blanc Township Mormon church shooting leaves 2 dead, 8 wounded, and many more feared killed after a gunman opens fire and burns down the building. Now, Trump says that he is sending troops to Portland. This also coming out in the last 24 hours as well, in the latest deployment to U.S. cities. So he is saying that there is an assortment of issues that need to be addressed. We need to help U.S. cities at this time. Trump says that he will send troops to Portland to deal with domestic terrorists. Now, Trump orders a crackdown on domestic terrorists and an escalation of a campaign against political rivals. And let's take a look at this now. We're going to be discussing what unfolded with the church and then also the troops that are going to be going out to Portland. Here's a statement from Donald Trump on his platform, Truth Social. I have been briefed on the horrendous shooting that took place at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc, Michigan. The FBI was immediately on the scene, and we will be leading the federal investigations and providing full support to the state and local officials. The suspect is dead, but there is still a lot to learn. This appears to be yet another targeted attack on Christians in the United States of America. The Trump administration will keep the public posted, as we always do. In the meantime, pray for the victims and their families. This epidemic of violence in our country must end immediately. Again, that coming out from President Donald Trump, September 28, 2025 at 12:08 p.m. So let me get you caught up on the latest. A lot of video footage, a lot of articles. Actually, as we're on live right now, I believe there are more updates coming out regarding that shooting that took place. So I'm going to just dive right in, get you caught up on the latest. And I see people saying yes, they believe that these attacks are on the rise. If you think so, put yes. If you think no, put no. Let me know your thoughts. But do me a favor. I'm going to put it on the screen, read right from it. I'm going to share with you a lot of video footage that's been coming out today, September the 28th. If you appreciate that, now I know it's not the news that anybody wants to hear, but if you appreciate the updates, please take a second, put that thumbs up like button, because it helps spread this out further across the YouTube platform so more people can get the latest updated information. Also, to stay up to date, it's totally free. Why not go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell. I'll keep you up to speed on everything. But let's go ahead and get the latest video footage updates coming out across the news media outlets. They're going to be discussing the active shooter that was at that Mormon church today, and also Donald Trump coming out and saying this is a warning. This is a deliberate attack against Christians in the United States, here on U.S. soil, in our own cities. So let's go ahead and dive right in and get you caught up on the latest.
Meantime, we are getting reports this afternoon of an active shooter and a fire at a church in Grand Blanc, Michigan. That's about an hour outside of Detroit. Let's go to Brian Yennis. He has the very latest for us. Brian, what can you tell us?
Kevin, good afternoon. A developing story indeed. We can tell you right now that the Grand Blanc police say that that fire that you're seeing on your screen was started by a suspected active shooter. Sources telling Fox 2 Detroit that that active shooter is now down. So this is the situation we have. We also know, according to that reporting from our local affiliate in Detroit, that there are 6 to 8 victims. Their condition currently unknown at this hour. An active shooter shooting the Church of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon church in Grand Blanc Township. This is about 60 minutes northwest of Detroit, about 10 miles south of Flint, Michigan. We have seen some folks, victims being taken out by stretcher. There has been a full-blown response to this church. We don't know how this fire was started, but sources tell our Fox 2 Detroit that that fire was started by the suspected shooter. This all started shortly after 11 a.m. local time. We expect a press conference at about 12:45, 1 o'clock Eastern, with the latest from the police. But this is unfortunately, this was a church that They had people there worshiping inside. This church is open 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. today. When this shooter opened fire sometime after 11 a.m., striking from reportedly 6 to 8 people in that church. Their condition unknown. You can see the shot here. This is, we don't control this camera, but this is a local affiliate there. You can see the fire trucks working there. There are police officers there. Like I said, that smoke from the church is billowing a lot less than it was even just 15, 20 minutes ago. So you can understand the situation here, Kevin, where they are working on taking, putting out a fire at the same time that they are looking for victims of an active shooter. Just a horrific situation, a complicated situation there for our first responders in Grand Blanc, Michigan right now at the Church of Latter-day Saints. So we should expect an update within the next 40 minutes or so to give us a sense of what else, just the extent of this horrific situation. We do know, though, according to the reporting, as I said, that this is the police in Grand Blanc Township are saying that there is currently no threat to the public at this time because the shooter is down. That is a bit of good news here, as you can see the first responders trying to figure out, trying to take out this fire while also saving potentially any victims that could be trapped inside, Kevin.
Let me ask you, do we know if the fire was started and then the gunman opened fire, or did he attack the congregation and then set the building ablaze? Do we have any of that information? By the way, I should point this out. This is all happening on a day that the LDS Church announced with sorrow that Russell M. Nelson, the beloved president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, had died. He was 101, the oldest president in the history of the church. So it was a solemn day for mourners. I just wanted to point that out as well. Brian, back to you. What else can you tell us?
Yeah, it's a good point. Sources telling our local affiliate there in Detroit that the suspected shooter may have started the church fire. In terms of what came first, it is simply too soon to tell. What we do know, again, is that this was a shooting that was reported shortly after 11 a.m. You can see neighbors there looking, worryingly looking there. And so there are 6 to 8 victims. We don't know the extent of their injuries. We know that the active shooter is no longer was shot. We don't know if that shooter was killed. All we know is that that shooter is down. So these are all the things. You can see our satellite view there. Google Maps gives you an idea of the size of this church. We don't know how big this fire was, just based on the images that we could see. I mean, it was very thick black smoke. So to the extent of when this fire was started by this shooter, how large this fire was, did it take down the whole church? Was it simply in a small part? Those are simply questions that we don't know the answers to yet, but it looks like a substantial fire that they were putting down. This is an earlier video. You can see that the smoke was a lot thicker than it was even during the last couple of minutes of this report, a thick black smoke. And you can see also there victims that were brought out on the stretcher, as others, seemingly, even the elderly, coming out of that church. Just a horrific scene this morning, Kevin, in Grand Blanc, Michigan, as we wait to get more information.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some more video footages. We are also hearing, this one says that Trump has responded that the deadly Michigan church shooting is targeted attacks on Christians. He said that is exactly what is taking place right now. Let's go ahead and take a look at this update so you can see it for yourself.
A 40-year-old suspect from Burton. He's a male. He drove his vehicle through the front doors of the church. He then exited his vehicle, firing several rounds at individuals within the church. 10 gunshot victims have been transported to local hospitals at this time, including one who has been deceased.
We continue to get more information about the church shooting and attack that took place in Grand Blanc, Michigan. Obviously, one deceased thus far among the at least 10 victims, and we also know that there are a number of them that remain in critical condition at this hour. Unfortunately, more victims, all the more likely. And with more on that, we want to welcome back correspondent Brian Yennis. Brian, You were watching the news conference earlier. I guess we'll get more information at 5 p.m. What else can you tell us about the shooter and about the unfortunate circumstance that surrounds yet another violent attack in this country?
Well, Kevin, we know from that press conference that the FBI has about 100 agents on scene helping local law enforcement as they are now going to retrace this shooter's steps. The 40-year-old from Burton, they did not release his name, as you astutely pointed out in the last couple of minutes. And that is because we believe that the FBI is now going to search not only his online history, but also go to this shooter's home where they can try to figure out and find some sort of motive behind this horrific shooting this morning. We know that this shooting started at 10:25 this morning. The suspected shooter rammed his car through the front doors of this church. At some point separately, this shooter started a fire in that church that consumed the entire church. When that shooter exited his vehicle, he used his assault rifle, opened fire, shot 10 people. One person died. 9 people are at the hospital, some in critical condition, others in stable condition. And there is an unknown number of victims who unfortunately perished inside of that fire. The chief of police saying that this was a fire that may have trapped people on the second floor of this church. There were hundreds of people at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc, Michigan, when all of this happened. They were there worshiping with their families, multiple generations of people obviously and their families there. So a horrific situation. At this point, we are now getting a reaction from this. Latest reaction now from a spokesman for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who released a statement calling this a tragic act of violence that occurred today. They are deeply grateful for the outpouring of prayers and concern from so many people around the world. In moments of sorrow and uncertainty, we find strength and comfort through our faith in Jesus Christ. Places of worship are meant to be sanctuaries of peacemaking, prayer, and connection. We pray for peace and healing for all involved. And that, again, a spokesman for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who just released that statement for what happened at this church about 60 miles northwest of Detroit, just south of Flint, Michigan. As the shooter is down, and all thanks to the heroic work of 2 local law enforcement officers who arrived on scene and immediately engaged with this shooter, shooting and killing the suspect. This is what they are trained for, despite the fact that there was an ongoing massive blaze that consumed that entire church. They engaged with the immediate threat, which was that shooter. And I'm sure we're going to learn more in the coming hours of how many lives perhaps were saved because of those heroic actions of those 2 police officers. We are also getting response from the President of the United States, who says that he was briefed on what he calls a horrendous shooting. And he also says that not only is the FBI immediately on scene, but also this point: the suspect is dead, but there is still a lot to learn, the president says. This appears to be yet another targeted attack on Christians in the United States of America. The Trump administration will keep the public posted, as we always do. In the meantime, pray for the victims and their families. This epidemic of violence in our country must end immediately. The president, perhaps obviously there, making note of the fact that there was that horrific fire in August 27th, about a month ago, almost exactly, a mass shooting at the Annunciation Catholic Church that killed 2 people and injured many others in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So we don't know the motive yet officially. We will hopefully learn more when the FBI and local law enforcement hold that press conference at 5 p.m. today. But right now, it's prayers for those victims, and as we know that there are perhaps an unknown number of victims as well in that fire. Kevin.
Great stuff, Brian Yennis. Appreciate that. Again, the president saying this appears to be yet another targeted attack on Christians in the United States of America. Again, you heard Brian make mention of what happened over in Minnesota. And again, as I pointed out throughout the afternoon, there have been a number of targeted attacks on Christian, not just Christians all over the globe, but in particular Christian churches in Europe. We want to bring in former D.C. homicide detective and Fox News contributor Ted Williams. It's too early to assign a motivation here, Ted, but obviously they're going to begin to piece this all together one step at a time. You heard Brian mention something I thought was very important. They want to make sure they don't necessarily name an individual before they have a chance to collect their communications and perhaps even get over to a home or a storage locker, just see what else they can collect. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a very clear assessment on the part of you and Brian. Look, Kevin, what we have here this morning, this horrific event, this was a domestic terrorist act. When you take an automobile where you know that a large congregant of people are in a church worshiping, and you run it through the front door of that church and you set fire to that church, that is an act of domestic terrorism. And this is one of the reasons that I recently called for, and I'm saying once again, we need laws in place for acts of domestic terrorism in this country. We don't have a domestic terrorism act law on the books. We need Congress to get busy and get that done, because we're witnessing more and more of these kinds of acts. I'm from the state of Louisiana. I was down in New Orleans covering where we had a terrorist attack there, where a person came from Houston, Texas with a vehicle and ran over and killed many people there in New Orleans. And we look at what has happened here today. This is not the exception, unfortunately, but it looks like it's becoming the norm, and we have to do something about this in America.
We have to do something about it indeed. Want to share this too. The Vice President, J.D. Vance, says the entire Trump administration is monitoring the Grand Blanc, Michigan church shooting and fire, as are we. Of course, we'll continue our coverage after a very quick timeout. Ted, stand by.
There you have it, you guys. Now, in addition to that, we're going to be taking a look at some more information that's come out in the past couple of hours regarding the church shooting. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of these articles coming out. And again, let me know your thoughts to this question. Are attacks on religious institutions on the rise in the United States? You can see this coming out today, September 29th, 2025, as U.S. President Donald Trump has described the incident as another deliberate attack on Christianity. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. It says a man rammed his vehicle into a church in Michigan on Sunday before opening fire on the congregation, killing at least 2 people and wounding at least 8 others, authorities have said. Officials believe that the suspect also set fire to the church before dying in an exchange of gunfire with responding officers. Hours later, U.S. President Trump described the incident as another deliberate attack on Christians and said the FBI would lead the federal investigation while assisting state and local authorities. Now, the deadly attack in Michigan is the latest in a series of violent incidents targeting religious institutions across the United States. Now, 2 children were killed in the gunfire as it erupted during a back-to-school mass at the Education Catholic Church in Minneapolis on August 27th. Now, an assailant fired through the church's windows, killing an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old and injuring 19 others, including 16 children. The church operates a school serving students from pre-kindergarten through 8th grade. Authorities said the attacker, a former student, died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Baptist Church in Kentucky. 2 women were fatally shot and 2 others wounded on July 13th on the grounds of Richmond Road Baptist Church in Lexington, Kentucky. Police said the gunman had earlier shot a state trooper during a traffic stop near Lexington's airport before carjacking another vehicle and driving 16 miles to the church where he opened fire. The suspect was killed by officers at the scene. Authorities believe that he may have had a personal connection to individuals at the church. Bible school in Michigan. On June 22nd, a man wearing a tactical vest and carrying an AR-15 style rifle and a semi-automatic handgun opened fire inside a church in Wayne, Michigan, about 25 miles west of Detroit. The building was filled with children attending Vacation Bible School. One church employee was injured before members of the church's security team fatally shot the gunman. Police said the attacker's mother was a member of the church, and he had attended services there several times in the past year. Investigators said the motive remains unclear, but noted that the man may have been experiencing a mental health crisis. Christian school in Wisconsin. December of 2024, a 15-year-old student opened fire at the Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin, killing a 14-year-old student and a teacher. 6 others, including a teacher and 5 students, were wounded before the shooter died from self-inflicted gunshot wounds, authorities said. The attack took place during the final week of classes before the Christmas break. Religious school in Tennessee. 3 students and 3 staff members were killed in March of 2023 when a gunman opened fire at the Covenant School, a private Christian institution in Nashville. The victims included 3 9-year-old students. Police identified the attacker as a former student who had planned the assault for several months. Investigators said the suspect fired 152 rounds during the attack, starting by shooting through the school's glass doors to gain entry. So let me know your thoughts. These are all the ones that they said have just been in about the past year or so, targeting religious institutions, and that is coming, as we had seen. Donald Trump had said that I have been briefed on the horrendous shooting that took place at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc, Michigan. The FBI was immediately on the scene and will be leading the federal investigation and providing full support to state and local officials. The suspect is dead, but there is still a lot to learn. This appears to be yet another targeted attack on Christians in the United States of America. The Trump administration will keep the public posted, as we always do. In the meantime, pray for the victims and for their families. This is an epidemic of violence in our country that must end immediately. And please drop a praying hands if you're a praying individual in the comments for prayer and support for those that were involved in what took place today at that church. And also, let's go ahead and take a look at some more video footage so that way you can see the latest updates for yourself.
All right, we're going to go now to a live news conference with more information.
Township Fire Chief Gent, Genesee County Sheriff's Department Sheriff Chris Swenson, and MSP Michigan State Police Captain Greg Marenko. I'm going to provide an update from the incident that we spoke about earlier today that occurred at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at 10:25 a.m. I want to talk about our officer's response. That call came out at 10:25 a.m. and 32 seconds. We had officers on scene at 10:25 and 57 seconds. The suspect, again, we're in the preliminary stages right now, was neutralized at 10:33:44 in the parking lot of that church. That suspect is a 40-year-old male from the city of Burton, who we identified as Thomas Jacob Sanford. That's Thomas Jacob Sanford, S-A-N-F-O-R-D. Currently where we're at, an update, I gave you 10 victims who were victims of gunshot. Since then, we have 2 victims who are now deceased. One additional one had died at a local hospital. And again, that suspect is deceased as well. 7 other victims at this time are in stable condition. 1 is in critical condition. Now, for the reunification, I had a question earlier about, hey, where can people call to see if their loved one is okay at the reunification center? I want to provide a number for you for that. It's 248-705-7352. Also, I know that our community is hurting right now, and we want to provide some resources for our community moving forward. At the Genesis Athletic Club in Grand Blanc for Monday and Tuesday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., we will have services for the community. From Wednesday to Friday, those services will be available to our community at the Grand Blanc Senior Center. That's all I have for now. I will give you another update, another press conference at 8 p.m. Thank you.
Hey.
There you have it, you guys. So that is the latest we've got coming out on the shooting that took place over at that Michigan church. And right now we're waiting to see if more information will come out. Now, as you heard them say, there's concerns about these attacks that are taking place in various churches. In addition to that, we're hearing that Donald Trump is also saying he's trying to protect the United States from various attacks as well. Take a look at this article coming out here just yesterday. So a lot of this developing in the last 24 hours. Trump says that he is sending troops to Portland in the latest deployment to U.S. cities. Now, let me know your thoughts. Do you appreciate the way that Donald Trump is addressing a lot of the issues that are facing the United States right now, the potential attacks on various cities, on churches? He's saying this one is a deliberate attack against Christians. If so, drop a 47 in the comments for support for Donald Trump. And if you haven't done so yet, please take a second and hit that like button. But let's take a look at this article to get you the latest updated information. You can see coming out yesterday, September the 27th, President Donald Trump said on Saturday yesterday that he will send troops to Portland, authorizing full force if necessary to handle domestic terrorists as he expands his deployment to more American cities. And again, if you appreciate that, drop those 47s. I'm seeing them starting to pour into the comments. He made the announcement on social media, writing that he was directing the Department of Defense to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland. Trump said the decision was necessary to protect U.S. immigration and customs enforcement facilities, which he alleged is under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for details on Trump's announcement, such as a timeline for the deployment or what troops would be involved. Portland's mayor, Democrat Keith Wilson, said there was no need for troops in his city. Our nation has a long memory of acts of oppression, and the president will not find lawlessness or violence here unless he plans to perpetrate it, he said. Residents ask, where's the emergency? Now, early Saturday, there was no sign of any federal presence in the city's downtown, where people jogged along the Willamette River, relaxed by a riverside fountain, or rode bikes on a sunny fall day. Where's the emergency? Asked resident Alan Schmetzer, 72, who said that he was disgusted by the president's decision. Now, Trump has also named Chicago and Memphis as well. Trump previously threatened to send the National Guard into Chicago, but has yet to follow through. A deployment in Memphis, Tennessee is expected soon and will include only about 150 troops, far less than were sent to the District of Columbia or Washington, D.C. for Trump's crackdown on crime, or in Los Angeles in response to immigration protests that turned violent with troops' arrival. Trump also sent Marines to Los Angeles. Now, in Memphis, about 80 to 100 people marched to a plaza in front of the city hall to protest the expected arrival next week of the guards and more than a dozen federal law enforcement agencies ranging from immigration to drug enforcement. Protesters held signs with messages such as "resources, not task forces," and "Memphis don't need no occupation. Memphis don't need no government control," a play on the Pink Floyd song "Another Brick in the Wall." Speakers at a news conference beforehand said that instead of federal troops and law enforcement agents, the city needs more funding for education, crime prevention, youth services, and hospitals. Few details are coming out from the Pentagon. Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell said the Department of Defense would provide information and updates when available. "We stand ready to mobilize U.S. military personnel in support of DHS operations in Portland at the president's direction," Parnell said. But Governor Tina Kotel, a Democrat, said there is no national security threat in Portland. "Our communities are safe and calm." Now, a spokesperson for the Oregon National Guard, Stephen Bomar, said in an email that no official requests have been received at this time for Guard support. Any requests would need to be coordinated through the governor's office, he added. Now, Oregon's congressional delegation, with the expectation of GOP Representative Cliff Bentz, demanded that the Trump administration keep federal agents and troops out of Portland. This unilateral action represents an abuse of executive authority, seeks to incite violence, and undermines the constitutional balance of power between the federal government and the states, the Democratic lawmaker wrote in a letter to Trump, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and Homeland Security Secretary Chrissy Noem. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Again, do you support what Donald Trump is doing? If so, drop a 47 in the comments. But we're hearing that the city, they're pushing back and saying, no, We don't need this. We're fine without it. Yet let me know your thoughts. Again, drop a 47 if you support it, because we heard that during the Biden administration, the open border policies allowed tons of people to pour in, which is one of the reasons why there is concern about attacks on U.S. soil, domestic terror attacks taking place from sleeper cells that have made their way in over the course of the Biden administration. They are waiting for attacks, coordinated attacks and efforts to take place here. Donald Trump is saying that he is trying to clean up the United States and make sure that we know who is in here and that the people that are in here are safe, making sure there are no more attacks on U.S. cities and there are no more attacks on churches, as we saw today. But let me go ahead and share with you a little bit more regarding what is going on right now in Portland, Oregon as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at this video footage so you can see it for yourself.
Is directing Secretary of War Hegseth to send U.S. troops to Portland and use full force if necessary as protesters ravage the city and attack ICE facilities, as Attorney General Bondi says anti-ICE violence has ignited a new era of violence. Taking to Truth Social, he said, at the request of Secretary of State, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, I am directing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from the attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists.
Well, it's not being received very well by Oregon's governor and leaders there, who, despite the scenes we have seen playing out night after night of the protesters camped out, here you see it right now, that is not a peaceful protest. These protesters have been assaulting ICE officers and federal law enforcement out there, but yet the Oregon leaders are upset at President Trump for the deployment to try and get this under control. Listen.
There is no insurrection, there is no threat to national security, and there is no need for military troops in our major city. Military service members should be dedicated to real emergencies. The members of the Oregon National Guard, their mission is to stand up and protect Oregonians, and they will do that every day, but they are not needed in the city. They are not needed here.
We have a place at the table for everyone, willing to lend a hand, including the federal government. However, we have no tolerance for anyone in Portland who uses this difficult moment to hurt others or our home. Those with bad intentions should take a hike, because they'll be held responsible for their actions.
You know, I thought that President Trump designated Antifa and these types of groups as domestic terrorists. And I look at that image when it was kind of comical when you were like, not a peaceful protest, because we all remember, you know, BLM and Antifa and that summer of love and people reporting that it was a peaceful protest as fires burn. But that's what we're seeing here. I mean, look, I think are they erecting a guillotine there?
Yeah.
I thought that was a no-no after January 6th. We still haven't figured out what feds did that, but like this is.
Well, you put your finger on it, Rachel. What does that message of this guillotine send? It sends the kill ICE message. We just had this week the horrific attack in Dallas, the gunman that fired on that ICE facility. In previous weeks, we had a ICE officer dragged by a car in Chicago, and a litany of other. We just had ICE officers being assaulted in Chicago, but in Portland, for the governor of the state and local leaders to say that some crackdown isn't wanted, they're almost saying, Rachel, that we're defending our riots. We like our riots.
Yeah, they're defending the riots. That's exactly what's happening. That looks like Mad Max. That looks dystopian. And no one wants to live like that. But apparently, people of Oregon keep electing governors like that. So I guess you get the government you deserve.
Yeah, indeed, you really do. But I think that that's the key point to all of this is the fact that you have President Trump looking at places that are not Republican strongholds, but wanting to do whatever he feels like he can do from his position to actually improve the daily lives of people who live there. And I would think that cleaning up riots like that, the mayhem that people who live there have to endure, people who, as you point out, overwhelmingly vote Democrat, it is a reminder that Donald Trump is not looking at these things through a partisan lens.
Yes,
he's looking at these things through the lens of, this is insane. How do we live in the greatest country on earth, and this is going on in a magnificent city of ours? I'm going to put a stop to it.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here.
Let's go ahead and take a look at another one with some more updates.
You've seen
coming out
PragerU's
here.
5-minute videos. They've changed a lot of minds, maybe even yours. But making them, it takes
Much more on this story as we welcome in DHS Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs and great friend of the program, Tricia McLaughlin. Wow. When I saw that story, that's all I could think of. I mean, there's so much to go there. But I want to begin not with Iowa, but this idea of what's happening in Portland. I want to share this from Truth Social. This is the president. At the request of Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, I am directing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. I am also authorizing full force if necessary. Thank you for your attention to this matter. That is what we call an escalation in making sure that people understand the president and this administration is taking this very seriously.
That's leadership. President Trump is giving our law enforcement the resources they need to carry out their mission, to do their job and enforce the rule of law. We're grateful for the partnership of Secretary Hegseth. They're surging federal resources there. I mean, Kevin, you've seen the images. You've seen what's happened out of Chicago yesterday. The rioters, one even bringing a handgun. That individual was arrested, as were about 19 other individuals arrested for obstructing justice, for trying to prevent these vehicles from getting into the ICE detention facility, and for assaulting our law enforcement. We're not going to put up with it. This administration is not playing games.
I want to share two graphics back to back. Just this is more instructive for the audience. I know you're well aware of this. This is the ICE agent assaults. Yeah. And we've talked about how this has been a real problem, but when you see the numbers, it really it's galling, frankly. More than 1,000% increase, according to DHS sources. And in case you're wondering, is this isolated? Let me just share what Antifa is said to be doing. We've got arrests. We've got a map here, and it's everywhere. It's from coast to coast. It's in major cities all around. And I think that underscores, Tricia, why this is so crucial that the president take action right now, not just to ensure the safety of ICE and law enforcement, but also, frankly, to ensure the safety of our communities.
Exactly, the safety of the American public. And what we're seeing is these riots and these protests are becoming highly organized. We're seeing that people are being bussed in. We're looking at, and President Trump has directed a whole of government approach to be looking at those funding streams. Who is sowing this chaos and this violence in American communities? And who's paying for this? So whether it be in Portland, whether it be in Chicago or otherwise, we will bring the resources we need to make sure that Americans are safe.
Let me follow up on that. How do you go about defunding or at least targeting the cash? Because I don't believe this is as organic as some people suggest. I've heard some people in the media say, oh, it's just a ragtag collection of individuals out there. I don't buy that for a second. Is that also the administration's perspective, that this is not as organic as someone leads you to believe?
No, we're seeing a lot of paid protesters, that they actually do this full time for a living. Right? They'll go from city to city, whether it be Portland, Chicago, or Los Angeles, and they're showing up. They don't even know what the heck they're protesting for. They're just there to create chaos, to obstruct our officers, and really sometimes violence is what we're seeing a lot of.
When you saw these arrests today, this Instagram Live situation, I mean, that is, yeah, I know.
It's unhinged.
It's absolutely shocking to me, especially those of us who understand the use of social media, this idea of following. And this is when you have policies like in California where they're suggesting they shouldn't be allowed to wear a mask. Again, this is exactly why people are so concerned about the health, safety, and well-being of these officers of the court, these ICE enforcement agents and law enforcement who are simply trying to do their jobs.
Exactly. This is a dangerous job as it is. They're targeting known and suspected terrorists, members of Tren de Aragua, MS-13, and then to have these unhinged individuals stalk a member of our law enforcement, follow him home, and then put his address online is just beyond the pale. These ladies, if they don't like the law, they should lobby Congress to change it. But to go after one of our law enforcement officers is just disgusting, unacceptable. And may I just add the fact that these women, they should just go to Congress.
Yeah.
This is absolutely crazy, Kevin.
It's really shocking. Let me share this. This is Hakeem Jeffries. Basically, when the president speaks very, shall we say, colorfully about some of his political opponents, and frankly, there's a great deal of criticism, and I think some of it is fair. You have to be careful with language. But what Hakeem Jeffries is suggesting is that the president is making it difficult for them, not just for DHS, by his tone. Listen to this, get your reaction.
Here's what the Department of Homeland Security has done. The Department of Homeland Security put out a hit list directed at Democratic members of Congress, Democratic governors, and Democratic officials. It's a hit list saying to crazies all across the country, target these people. And so, no, we're not going to be lectured by the Department of Homeland Security. Take your hit list down.
A hit list is what he's talking about. There are a lot of people, frankly, who would argue that's incredibly irresponsible to make that suggestion. 30 seconds. I want to give you a chance to respond.
He's detached from reality. We saw what just happened at our Dallas ICE facility, where it was shot up by a lunatic, by a deranged individual, and he's been emboldened, and others like him have been emboldened by a lot of the rhetoric we're seeing out of Democrat politicians like Hakeem Jeffries, who continues to demonize and dehumanize our ICE law enforcement, calling them Nazis, calling them the Gestapo. It has to stop now.
And you hear it all the time, and and especially at this point in our history, people need to really take the temperature down in the room. So great to see you, Tricia McLaughlin. Appreciate your time today.
There you have it, you guys, and a lot going on today, September the 28th, 2025, as Donald Trump is trying to address these various cities across the nation with potential domestic terrorist attacks that he is discussing. And also, in addition to that, we saw that shooting take place today. And you can see the subtitle, U.S. President Donald Trump has described this incident as yet another deliberate attack on Christians, and it poses the question, Michigan church shooting, are attacks on religious institutions on the rise in the United States? And if you think so, put yes in the comments. If you think no, put no. Let me know your thoughts. But that is the latest. And also, don't forget to say a prayer for those that were involved in today's incident. Put prayer hands in the comments for support. And I will continue to keep you up to date on everything as it unfolds. Donald Trump saying that he's going to be trying to address the safety in the United States, trying to use those ICE agents and get out all those that have poured into our borders over the course of the last 4 years during the Biden administration, trying to make sure that they can keep America safe. And again, let me know your thoughts. Do you believe what Donald Trump said today, that this is another deliberate attack on Christians, and Christianity, churches need to be on guard? If so, put yes. If no, put no. Let me know your thoughts. I'll keep you up to date. And again, I cite all the sources, put it on the screen, read right from it. They're all going to be hyperlinked in the description so you can read them for yourself. I share with you the latest video footage, and if you appreciate that, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up like button, help spread this out further while we're live. Subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free. Why not? With that being said, thank you so much for joining me. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.